That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is Commissioner Cooper, and you see it here. It's TSS live in Vegas, along with the LSFL having their 20th anniversary here. We are pumped up, excited, and it's time for TSS Fantasy.
Yeah! Let's go! Yeah!
It worked for The Rock, and it's going to work for me.
And you just got slandered.
That's what it is! This court is adjourned.
It is Commissioner Cooper.
Welcome to Sophistication Station.
I'm here to save your fantasy roster.
And it's time for TSS Fantasy. Let's get this thing started. And if you haven't seen, we have a Randy Macho Man impersonator even behind us. We'll get to that in a second. Let's get to the introductions. Let's get to the people who are live here in Vegas first. Welcome to let's go to my left here. Nick, you got flandered macaronis.
Hi, it's hot. I'm sweating. I want to go.
Whiny as fuck as usual. Let's go to my right. It's Fred, the Jester Reyes.
I do concur. It is hot. But let's do this show. Let's get it going. And we got a special guest.
For those who know from Canton, still whiny as hell, the Jester. All right, let's welcome in our guy, our impersonator. He's already been backstage, going excited. Ken Hubler, welcome in. He's known affectionately as the King of the North. Welcome in, friend.
You also forgot the People's Champ.
Joe Dirt.
And Joe Dirt, whatever, but I'm still the People's Champ. It's a pleasure to be here and teach y'all some knowledge today. Thank you, guys.
All right, that was awkward like I thought. Let's also welcome in Judge Jordan. Welcome into the studio.
Hey, man. And of course, it was going to be awkward. This guy's the biggest Cooper Rush stan. And I just want to say, I love seeing all of your beautiful faces, especially Flanders, who is like the only guy who could be pissed off just sitting in sunny Las Vegas.
Indeed. Always got something. He'll find something to complain
about.
Pissed off too.
He's complaining I'm in the black suit, right? All right, well, let's welcome in Justin Jesus Herrera. Welcome in, friend.
You know, I've heard only a few people get pissed off in Vegas. It's either because you're broke, you're having a bad time, or you're Nicholas Macaronis.
Or if you're a Raiders fan.
Yeah. I mean, even they have a fun time. You know, they get to go to the craps table and actually try for some luck and not have to be stuck behind that season. But yeah, happy to be in. And boys, you got to be poolside. What the fuck are you doing over there, bro? You sitting in the fucking blazing hot sun? Go in the lazy river. Let's go. Come on. What are you doing? You ain't doing anything.
Listen, had to try to find a nice spot up here, bro. It's not as easy as you think. All right, well, let's start. We got a lot of news to bring up. Let's talk about it.
We'll do it live! Fuck it! Do it live!
Sweat coming off my ass. Oh, hi. Let's talk about the news. How about let's talk about Just Broke Trey Lance, right? We got to bring that up. We had a nice big conversation about it earlier. Trey Lance to the Cowboys. We got a Cowboys and a 49ers guy in the house. So this is a good way to start this off. How about the guy who received Jordan? What do you say about this gift from the Cowboys? Or excuse me, from the 49ers, my bad.
If you guys know anything about me, it's I love to receive. And receiving Trey Lance was news that I was not expecting when I woke up today. But hell yeah, let's ride. I mean, at the end of the day, you have a few crazy people out there who might think Cooper Rush is a actual starting quarterback in this league. But to me, this is a hell of an insurance policy. This kid is still younger than like Will Levis, who just came into the league. He came in raw, and man, I really like this move by the Cowboys. They gave up next to nothing for him.
Justin, what do you say out of the 49ers? Are you upset about this move? Sam Darnold, now you're number 2.
Well, he was going to be the number 2 anyways. But I'll say this, good luck to Trey Lance. I was telling Judge before we hopped on the show, I have never, ever rooted for a Cowboys quarterback until today. That changed. I'm still a Trey Lance guy, still think he's got game, but he's going to do it in Dallas, and I'm happy for him. And you know what? I hope it bites him in the butt because I hope Kyle Shanahan realizes he missed out on developing a good quarterback.
Indeed. Fred, you got anything to say on the subject?
No, not really.
That's what I thought. Fred, as usual, full of knowledge. All right, our guest, Joe Dirt, wants to chime in on this. He is a big Cowboys fan. Here, and let's hear what.
Hand the mic to James Ellsworth. James, what do you got to say?
Man of a million nicknames.
We could go back and forth on this all day, guys. But at the end of the day, don't get me wrong, Trey Lance is an incredible athlete. The guy is just insane as far as what he can do. But he can't stay healthy. Are you going to let him develop? Meanwhile, you got a guy in Cooper Rush, who I know you guys are sitting here dogging him. But at the same time, the guy went 5-1 last year while Dak was out. He's not going to crazy. He's not going to light the scoreboard up, but he's going to go down the field. He's going to get you points, and he's not going to turn the ball over, which is one thing Dak Prescott did himself last year. He led the league in interceptions. I mean, they were a better team all around when they slowed the game down and let Cooper Rush run the offense. Were they more dynamic? Hell no. Dak Prescott is a more dynamic quarterback. He's going to get you down the field quickly. He's going to score points. But when it comes down to it, he chokes in big moments, and he turns the ball over a lot. Go and look at the beginning of these Cowboy games the last couple of years. He goes down the field. We get the ball first, even get a quick turnover and get the ball. We move down the field, and what happens? It's either a punt, a field goal, or an interception. He doesn't punch the ball in the end zone early enough to start putting these teams away, which is why he's playing from behind and putting up these amazing stats he has. Cooper Rush, like I said, I know you guys are sitting here dogging, but my point is he's not flashy. But he goes down the field. He does his thing. And at the end of the day, Trey Lance is nothing more than he's going to replace Will Grier. That's it. Will Grier's moving to the practice squad, and Trey Lance is going to be the third-string quarterback.
Listen. Like in the movie Coco just now, that was someone seizing their moment right there. That's what you do when you get the mic in your hand. Come and bring the heavy stuff. Absolutely. All right, listen, I'm going to bring this up in the next news up in a fantasy question because I'm curious at what you guys think. So I have the number 2 pick in my fantasy league, and a buddy of mine said to me, hey, if you go to America's team, are you automatically?
This is like a.
The only thing I've heard of all of that was America's team.
I imagine the question is if Jonathan Taylor goes to America's team. Yeah, it's not working out.
Put Savage back on the mic. You can at least understand him.
We went from James Ellsworth to Michael Cole over here.
Do you? Can you hear me now?
You better ask for the better hotel Wi-Fi, the one you have to pay for.
This trip is all about learning to fall in love with Spectrum again.
100%. Welcome in, Vinny Iyer. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Just had to do a little bit of work responding to this Trey Lance news, so got that up. Trying to figure it out, why the 49ers gave up on him so quickly, why the Cowboys were interested. So a lot of buzz about that going on right now. And just one of those typical Friday night NFL news dumps falling right into our lap here. So
Oh, for real, for real. We actually just got done talking about that. If you have anything you want to chime into the whole situation, since you were just talking about that, if you want to throw anything into that conversation, go ahead. I'm a 49ers fan. The judge is a Cowboys fan. So we have two perspectives from both teams, but it's good to have an unbiased perspective. So, Vinny, if you got anything to say, go for it.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think Kyle Shanahan does not like non-pocket passers. I think he had one, and he tried to make it work. But if he's going to prefer Sam Darnold, he likes old school quarterbacks that are going to not run too much. He wants running backs to run. He doesn't want his quarterback to run. So I think he felt uncomfortable with it, and he couldn't quite work it. That he had to deal with just the raw play of Lance, where he couldn't execute as well as some of these other guys. And he didn't get as excited as the rest of us about his ceiling and couldn't make it work. So then he saw Brock Purdy. Oh, this is the guy that I'm used to. A Jimmy Garoppolo type, gets the ball out quickly, stays in the pocket, knows his place in the offense, kind of like a point guard. So I think he just didn't know how to use Trey Lance. And the Cowboys are interesting because I think we don't look at it maybe in that way, but I think Dak Prescott, very similar in a way. I mean, they gave a 4th-round pick to get Trey Lance. They drafted Dak Prescott in the 4th round. There are some things that he does like Dak Prescott might if he can live up to his potential, right? He's got a strong arm, similar size, and a guy that can run around when needed. So, look, I think it was worth taking a shot on him. And for a 4th-round pick, sure. I mean, this guy went in the 1st round just 2 years ago. So we'll see what happens to the Cowboys, but maybe also putting Dak Prescott on notice here. Look, you have a couple years left on your contract. You didn't play well last year. You missed a lot of games here. I think 17 games in the last 3 seasons. You got to put up here, and they're changing the offense for him as well. So I think a little bit of that nervousness for Dak Prescott, maybe, but he's got some work to do if he wants that second big contract from Jerry Jones.
Amen.
For sure. I think you said it best. I mean, I think they do kind of. They're pretty much they're pretty much carbon copies of each other. I mean, you said it. They run when needed. I think the 49ers thought that they were going to get a guy who could legitimately run all the time. And that's not what Trey Lance ever was. I mean, you look at him in North Dakota State, he was utilized more or less kind of like Jalen Hurts was utilized more or less to run in the goal line stuff and to improvise. And they just never let him improvise. And that's just been Kyle Shanahan. His system is his system. He doesn't want you improvising. He wants you hitting every last target that he has set up for you. So I think it's a perfect match to get him out of town. Now you can just work with Brock Purdy. You can work with Sam Darnold. And like I said, I am now rooting for a Cowboys quarterback. And I never thought those ugly words would ever come out of my mouth because I hate the Cowboys.
And Justin, I will speak for all of Cowboys Nation when I say, my friend, we are happy to have you on board.
You son of a bitch. All right. A little bit of other news that's out there. Obviously, Jerry Jeudy just went down. Looks like he's going to be out for 1 to 4 weeks. And how is that affecting you guys right now as far as drafting goes? Are you, Judy's kind of in that high-end wide receiver 2 range right now, but a lot of people were getting high on him and thinking about, hey, let's get him at that wide receiver 1 if you were going hero RB or if you were loading up on RB. So where are you guys at right now with that? I'll let Jordan lead this one off. Jordan, tell me what you're thinking when it comes to redraft, our subject for today on Jerry Jeudy.
So I already am not a big Jerry Jeudy guy. I think I have 1 share of him total. I kind of expected this at some point. This has kind of been, the story of Jerry Jeudy since he's gotten into the league. And it's funny because just the other day, the day before the injury news broke, I was talking to a friend with a dynasty question, and he needed to drop somebody, and he was looking at dropping Mims. And I was just like, listen, man, Jerry Jeudy could go down tomorrow, and all of a sudden that guy can have a very real role in this offense. And while, in redraft and stuff like that, I'm probably not, taking the crapshoot with the Mims in dynasty, man. I think this could elevate his timeline a little bit. And Look, as much as I don't like Jerry Jeudy, I am the Cortland Sutton stan, and we've all seen that Cortland Sutton does much better when Judy's not in the lineup. So.
Yeah, well, he still hasn't found that pre-ACL tear form.
Amen.
Vinny, how are you feeling about Jeudy? And more importantly, how are you feeling about Mims and the rest of this offense going into this redraft season?
Yeah, the only person I've been really interested in so far in mock drafts is Javonte Williams, just because he continues to be a good value here in drafts from this offense. But I'm not quite sure how everything is going to play out now with Tim Patrick gone, with another injury. KJ Hamler's gone. Does Mims get up to speed enough time? Does Sutton take over? Are we going to see more of Greg Dulcich? I don't know exactly what you're going to get from Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi here. It's just a very hard offense to read right now. And part of it is the wild card of Russell Wilson. I'm not sure where he's going to go with the ball. Last year, remember, the buzz was about him and Cortland Sutton. They were inseparable. They could do no wrong. The chemistry was there. Now it transitioned to him and Jerry Jeudy. They were on the same page last year. I'm not sure about either of those kind of storylines that have developed here. So I'm not saying I was that invested in the Broncos passing him. I did like Jeudy better than his ranking in ADP when he was healthy. But if the same thing is going to pop up, I'm not that interested. I would maybe look at Marvin Mims later in the draft because they were disappointed with Jeudy last year. They drafted Mims because he can do a lot of the same things, but maybe a little bit better, a little bit more of an explosive player after the catch and stretching the field. So they also have Jerry Jeudy not under contract, so they can also look beyond that. They invested a lot in Patrick and Sutton. That has not worked out at all. So I don't know what you're going to get. It's not necessarily a team I'm investing much in, except maybe getting Javonte Williams and somehow getting Samaje Perine behind him. That's about it for me with Denver, as much as I can, unless I'm really forced to take one of their wide receivers.
Yeah, Denver is definitely becoming more and more one of those tough teams to draft, because of the fact that pieces are just falling off left and right for them. And Russell Wilson. Yeah. I mean, Russell Wilson, Sean Payton loves to throw Marquez Callaway and Traquan Smith out there. So who knows? Maybe Traquan Smith will be making his debut for the Broncos week 1. So one last piece of news before we bring in our injury analyst, Brian Scott. I do want to talk about the rumors swirling around Jonathan Taylor. Are you guys, do you guys put much weight into this? Obviously, Miami put out an offer. They're also saying right now that they're not going to up that offer because they feel like they're legitimately just competing with themselves at this point. Are you guys putting much into Jonathan Taylor possibly not even playing for a good amount of the season? I don't think he's going to miss the entire season, but as I've said in the past, I think he could stretch a holdout to where like Melvin Gordon did with the Chargers, where he missed the first 4 or 5 games of that season and eventually lost his position to Austin Eckler. Now, I don't think Evan Hull is better than Jonathan Taylor, but just having 4 or 5 games without Jonathan Taylor can make him drop quite a few rounds. What are your guys' take on this Jonathan Taylor situation? Vinny, I'll let you start this one.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of Evan Hull. I'm a Northwestern guy. I've seen him play. He's not going to hold up doing this. I mean, he's a good back. I don't think he's a special back. He's a good pass catcher, but it was almost out of necessity because they can throw the forward pass that regularly last couple of years. So I'm not sure I would get too excited about Evan Hull. Look, I'm pleased with his role here and that he's climbed up the depth chart, but there's not a lot there, right? I mean, you don't have a lot of options, and Deion Jackson is out there, and you're hoping for the best from him. So, and Zach Moss is not out there. So there's just not a lot that this Colts team can just say, look, we're going to have an answer here. And I think they're confident, right? They didn't go after one of these backs that are available, Dalvin Cook or Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt. They didn't go after any of these guys. So I think what they're expecting is the same result that the Chargers got with Austin Eckler, or even the Ravens to a lesser degree with J.K. Dobbins, that go look for a trade. Good luck with that, finding someone who's going to pay you a little bit better, and also the compensation that we would reasonably take for you in return as a second-round pick just a couple years ago. So I think that's what they're hoping, right? He's going to shop around and say, I guess it is the best situation for me here. And what fantasy managers are hoping for is that I'm not going to miss time. I need to play if I'm going to get some value for the Colts here. So I don't know if Jonathan Taylor sees it that way. It's very hard to read. But again, I would be careful drafting him, but I wouldn't totally avoid him. I think if the value is there, I don't know where I would say the value is exactly right now. Somewhere maybe between round 2 and 3 is where I would target him anyway, based on his role. So maybe I think I would stretch it maybe to round 3 if I could wait that long. But that's about it. I mean, he's still a very talented back, and the Colts need him. And they drafted Anthony Richardson a little bit knowing that he's a running quarterback that can play off Taylor. So I don't see this situation going too far south. I think, unfortunately, Jim Irsay keeps putting his foot in his mouth, and it wouldn't have gotten this bad if he just shut up.
That's
and
kind
let
of where his foot
GM
lives,
do his
isn't
job.
it?
Yeah.
That's kind of where Jim Irsay's foot lives, is in his mouth.
Yeah, foot and mouth disease for sure. For
Yeah.
me, when I look at this, I'm probably in that other camp than you, Vinny. I'm probably not touching Jonathan Taylor this season, and everything you said is completely applicable. I love the kid. I love the talent. I obviously we've seen what he is and what he can be, right? But, Jonathan Taylor put a good amount of miles on his legs in college, and, he's that workhorse guy. And I think he is looking out for numero uno here. And let's look at this Colts team. It's not good. It's not going to be good. This is going to be a rough year for them. There are question marks on this offensive line. There's the rookie quarterback, right? Who knows what happens to him now? Gardner Minshew's in there. But with all of that, I just think that Jonathan Taylor is his best bet is either getting out of this situation or holding off as long as he can before he puts himself back into this situation. The problem is I don't really think there's much of a trade market out there for him. And I kind of think it's the Miami Dolphins or bust. And I think the Miami Dolphins know that and aren't going to be willing to pony up what it takes to get him.
Yeah, I find it interesting that the trade was rejected from the Miami Dolphins. You always kind of wonder what was in those packages. But you're 100% right. The trade market seems to be non-existent, and the Miami Dolphins seem to be thinking that they're betting against themselves. They're literally negotiating with the Colts, and nobody else really has that much of an interest in them. I personally am out on Jonathan Taylor this year, and I have no problem being out on him, being out on a couple of these guys, because it's just the value is not there if I have to give up a second round pick, which is seemingly where Taylor is still going. But anyways, guys, we're kind of pinching time here. So we're going to get Brian in here. He has been waiting in the back patiently. Let's get going on this injury report.
What's up, guys?
Brian, I just gotta say, my man, out of everybody's intro music, none of them gets me as pumped as yours does. You make that entrance, man. It's beautiful.
Coop did all that. I didn't even pick that, so I give him props.
He's not here, so let's not give him any credit.
I know. I saw some earlier video. He looked like he was surrounded by the Secret Service up there on a rooftop. I was like, "What are we in a Hangover 4 episode here?"
Yeah, Hangover 4 Retirement Home Edition.
So a couple of big injury updates to go over, gentlemen. I'm sure you guys have some questions about Jackson Smith-Jigba, the receiver from the Seahawks. He actually did have his surgery, which they had first said he was going to have or did have. Then they turned around and said, nope, he hasn't had it yet. He's getting an evaluation for it. And then boom, he had it. So sounded like it was a simple type of fracture, although I don't know what that means. But then when head coach Pete Carroll spoke to the media today, he said it was a very elaborate surgery for a very small crack. Now, I have no idea what that means. My guess originally was that it could have been a scaphoid injury. And if that's the case, then you're looking at least 4 weeks, if not closer to 6, before we see him back. Because if it was a scaphoid injury, they're not going to let him back until they have confirmation that that thing is healed. And those bones tend to take a while to heal. It's a small bone in the wrist, but it's often injured and very subtle injury. So I'm thinking that that's what it may have been, just based on the descriptions and stuff I've heard. but it doesn't quite fit with the elaborate procedure to fix it. So I'm not quite sure. I think regardless, either way, it's a minimum of 4 weeks before we see him back on the field doing full contact practice. He might be braced up when he comes back, so just keep an eye on that. But I don't think it's going to be any earlier than 4 weeks. Moving right along, we had Terry McLaurin, who had like a turf toe type injury. They said today that now the week 1 game is going to be questionable. So that doesn't bode well with a turf toe injury. I did my regular weekly blog with Andrew LeDuc, Inside the Medical Tent, and we spoke about Terry McLaurin. And if you read that article, you'll see I was not very optimistic that he would be ready for week 1. The worst thing you can do with a turf toe injury is put a guy out there too soon, because then he'll have major setback and end up having missed more time. So definitely an injury that you need to treat conservatively. It sounds like that's what they're going to do. If they're saying questionable for week 1, that's about a 50-50 chance that he's going to suit up. So the only way you'll really be able to tell is if he's actually doing stuff in practice that involves cutting, running routes, full speed, and getting in live drills. So keep a close eye as we get closer to week 1. And then the other big one that happened just yesterday was Jerry Jeudy getting carted off the field with a hamstring injury. That is never a good sign. And I posted on Twitter that whenever that happens, I would not be surprised if he's out for close to 6 weeks, because they're calling it today a moderate hamstring strain. And just the fact that he got carted off the field would confirm that. But I'll tell you what, these things, even just a mild hamstring strain, takes a long time to get better. So a moderate hamstring strain is going to take even longer to get better. And that's not an injury you should mess around with this early in the season. They're very easily re-aggravated and could potentially be a season-long issue. So if I was a guessing man, I'd say at least 4, but probably closer to 6 weeks before we see him back. He's got youth on his side. He hasn't really had any major injuries in the past that I'm aware of. So, but definitely something you got to treat with kid gloves.
Wow. Thank you again, Brian. Can you only imagine being the guy who has all 3 of those guys on his team? It was just assuming, hey, I'll have a wide receiver 1 somewhere. It's gonna be Jackson Smith and Jigba, Terry McLaurin. Oh Jesus!
Yeah.
This is why you don't draft the running backs at the beginning of your drafts.
I think I actually do have Smith Jigba on one of my rosters. I can't say which one for sure, but the other guys I don't think I have, so I'm okay with it.
Awesome. Well, is that all you have for us today, Brian?
Yeah, I did a couple other players. If you want to hear about it or read about it, go check out Andrew and I's blog called Inside the Medical Tent. You can find it on the website, www.injuredlist.com. I've answered a bunch of questions throughout the week on Twitter, so check out some of my posts throughout the week, and you'll find some more information. But those are the 3 big ones that everyone's been asking me about more recently.
Cool. Everybody go check out the Injured List podcast. Brian is a wealth of knowledge, and he has been helping us a ton on Sundays. He is one of the best in the business. If you didn't see him at the Expo injury panel, you'll probably see him next year, because that's where he belongs, talking amongst the best in the business on injuries.
We've got some big episodes coming out next week, too. I've got some really, really big guests. I'm just waiting on confirmation, so I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag too early, but stay tuned.
All right. Awesome, Brian. Well, we're going to let you go, and we're going to pay some bills with Underdog.
Fantasy Sports Corp and Underdog Fantasy have teamed up to start your fantasy season off in the win column with Best Ball. What is Best Ball? It's quite simply the easiest way to win. No team management, no trades, no waivers. It's their biggest contest ever, and it has only gotten bigger. You simply have to sit and win. You don't even have to set your lineup. Always get your best score every week. Just enter a contest, draft your team, and Underdog will do the rest. What could make this even better? How about free money, up to $100 using our exclusive promo code? Go online now and use the promo code TSS to double your deposit up to $100. You tell them Gingerbread sent you. Good girl.
Dog.
For the main event. Oh, sorry about that. My thing's a little delayed. Now it's time for the main event. We are here to talk redraft strategy, and most importantly, redraft superflex strategy. So let's get this motherfucker in. So it's redraft season. It's those final weeks before you're getting into that home league. You want to dominate it. You want to stick it to your best friends, your family, your father-in-law, your son-in-law, your brother-in-law, whoever the hell you want to stick it to. And tonight, the judge, Vinny, and myself are going to give you those perfect redraft strategies. Let's start it off with our guest, Vinny. Tell me a couple things for single QB redraft that you're going in strategy-wise to every draft.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of change it from year to year. I don't stick to one script, and I also change it from draft to draft. Really, you really have to be head on a swivel here, right? Things can change very quickly. So I go in with some general things I'm looking at. So let's start a quarterback. So yeah, do I want to invest in Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, or Josh Allen? No, but I'm like getting more interested with Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, I definitely want to get in somewhere there, maybe on the back end of that, to make sure I have a quarterback with some upside, because I think a lot of the quarterbacks, when you get beyond that, a lot of the same, right? They don't really have a high ceiling and their floors are high. So you don't get much value picking, say, Geno Smith versus Kirk Cousins. I think those numbers could be very similar. They could be pleasing, but then there's not much separation. You're not getting any separation from your league mates. So I look at those listed quarterbacks, and I look at tight ends and say, is there an advantage here to going after tight end early and try to build down the tier there? So like Travis Kelce, yeah, he's in the tier by himself. Then who do I like next? TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews. Do I feel like Darren Waller is a good value now at this point with the Daniel Jones? So I try to figure out where do I feel like the drop-off is there that I'm comfortable with. And then the other positions, I think that's the one thing that you have to consider. Okay, if I'm comfortable with the drop-off to maybe QB number 7, and I'm okay with the tight end number 4, so I'm going to say I want to position myself to get those. So as long as I can get those guys, I can go after the best players I'm looking for and running back and wide receiver. And that's what I do. And then there's a stockpile. And then the one thing that I've noticed, if you invest in a tight end and a quarterback somewhat early, it also is roster economy. So you don't have to look for a second QB too early, not a tight end later necessarily. You can not draft those and then say, look, I can just load up on these other positions, get upside at running back and wide receiver where you need it the most and go there. And then finally, I look at if I have kickers. I still think I have one league where I have a kicker. I look at that with the very last pick. And with defense, if I don't have a kicker, I look at that at the last pick and I'm going to stream from week to week. So I want the value of where the positions are most important. That's running back and wide receiver. Figure out the other 3 positions or other 4 positions around it and go after it. If you have flex, 3 wide receivers, you got to make running back and wide receiver the highest priority there.
So I got a quick question for you. How early are you going QB in a single QB, one? And what are you more likely to kick the can down the road with, running back or tight end?
That's a good question. I think tight end is a little bit tougher now because I don't want to get into a mix of like I'm hoping for things. I don't necessarily want to get into that tier of Evan Ingram, Pat Freiermuth, that kind of tier. That's not a lot of upside, right? I mean, I'd rather just wait. It's kind of like we've said a few years now, tight end early or tight end late, and that's what you would think about. So I have a little bit more comfort level there. I think running back, the scarcity is starting to happen in terms of guys I really feel good about with the upside that are going to have enough volume here. So I think there's scarcity in play, all the positions, but at running back, that 15 to 20 touch back, like I don't want to get in a situation where I'm trying to figure out how the Dolphins backfield is going to shake out or the Bears and hoping for one of those guys come out. Like that's a little bit not comfortable for me because, again, it's a 3-headed monster and things could change. I would be fine with like a Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery situation, but I don't want to get too deep where I don't know the roles specifically of players and could change over the course of season based on durability.
Nice. Jordan, I'm going to pose the question to you now. Single QB drafts. I know you probably don't do a lot of those anymore, but what is your strategy going into a single QB redraft league right now?
F them quarterbacks. I want no part of them. Look, unless if I'm playing in like a 16 to 20 man league, there is no need to reach on a quarterback in single 1 QB leagues. Look, if Pat Mahomes falls far enough, sure. If Joe Burrow falls far enough, sure. Every player has a price. And so I'll draft anybody at the right draft capital. However, I'm not targeting those guys. I'm not going after those guys. Now, I primarily play Superflex because I just think it gives you more ways that you can win your league, more strategies you can explore, more things that you can do. Because let's face it, rarely do you win your league on draft day. You can lose it, but rarely do you win it, right? The season's all about curveballs and hurdles that you got to zig and zag and overcome, right? And so I'm looking to get some high upside players, and I am looking to hedge my bets as best as I can in the super flex format. And typically what I'm going to do, Justin, is I'm going to zig where they zag. I absolutely hate finding myself in that 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 position. That's the spot I'm probably going to, bite the bullet and go ahead and draft that quarterback, being honest, just because by the time it gets back down to the end of that second round, now you're picking from the, Daniel Joneses of this world, and I don't love to live in that world. Now, at the end of the first, however, if I'm anywhere near the end of the first, that's when I will usually go out. I'll get my wide receiver. I'll get my running back, depending on who falls. If it's a Bijan, I'm probably looking at him versus, if it falls to like Bijan or Diggs or something like that. But usually in the super flex format, you're looking at a Jamar Chase. You're looking at one of those guys that falls because so many quarterbacks go off that board right away. I feel like people get scared of the super flex and they go all in on that quarterback. So I think it's a really advantageous position to kind of be at the back half of that draft and be able to put yourself in a position where you can get that elite player and, ultimately a lot of the times double up on that as well with a stack of some sort.
Nice. So my question to you is in that, taking what you just said, where is it that you like to draft that you would get a double up on the quarterbacks? Is it more like the middle, like the 6th pick? Is it, I know you were talking about the 3 pick, you'll bite the bullet and go grab one of the early quarterbacks, but I imagine that's not going to set you up very well in the back end. At that point, you might as well just go grab like a CD Lamb and then see who comes around the 3rd round. So where would be a position for you where you would be very okay going out and grabbing a quarterback and then on the turnaround getting your quarterback again and starting out with 2 QBs?
It's kind of like you said, it's probably the sweet spot there is probably in the middle somewhere, right? Because you can get that quarterback in the middle of the round and turn right back around and get his number 1 receiver. The obvious one that comes to my mind is someone like Allen and Diggs, right? But the other thing I'm looking at, and I know a lot of people are scared to go here, but if I do fade those quarterbacks, man, I love the Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle and Tua stack a couple rounds later, right? Some of those guys that do fall through the cracks, but typically as a QB2 and not my main guy.
And who's that quarterback that you're looking for, like past the 2nd round, where you're targeting, you're zoned in on? You were just talking about Tua, but obviously you said Daniel Jones too. Like you said, Daniel Jones, the guy that you're probably not even looking at, you don't want him. Is it like a Tua? Is it a Kirk Cousins? Aaron Rodgers has fallen a little bit. Is that the type of guy you're looking at, especially in like a redraft where you can go year to year with him?
So just being blunt, if I don't get anybody, I would say by that Deshaun Watson range, the first 8 or 9 guys, I'm really, really sweating it, right? I really like to have one of those guys as my QB1 But when it does fall, I think Tua is probably my favorite upside play. And a lot of it depends on the construction of the team, right? Because there's also a world I will live in where, look, man, I know Kirk Cousins is going to give me 18 to 22 points in most formats, every single week. He may not hit some of those highs. Like Tua had a game where he had 6 touchdowns last year, right? You're not going to get that with Kirk Cousins. But, man, Kirk Cousins, he'll be a back end, QB1 most of the season.
For real.
Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff, Derek Carr. Those are 3 other guys I probably have quite a few shares of.
All right. I like it. Vinny, how are you with your super flex? Are you going after the quarterback early? Or are you kicking that can to the 3rd, 4th round and trying to pair up like an Aaron Rodgers and a Jared Goff like the judge was just talking about?
Well, I think I might take a little bit different approach. I think it just depends. Again, I just named the quarterbacks that I would be happy to have that maybe separate a little bit from the middle of the pack. And then what I'm doing, and I've done this a lot even in single QB leagues, right? I still go for a quarterback with upside. I remember one year my team, I really thought Andrew Luck was going to be my starter, and this was in 2018. But I saw Patrick Mahomes sliding on the board, and I took him, and I started Mahomes for most of the season. It worked out. So you never know what quarterback on the back end. I think he was like 18th or something on the board that year. And like Andrew Luck, I think it was 11th or 12th. So I think that's not a bad way to go to try to get the meaty middle, so to speak, here. But when you're looking at this group, I think I would look at maybe the Trevor Lawrence cutoff there. I really think Lawrence can have a big year. So I want to, if I'm picking, say, if you put them in the mix, I would say 7 to 8 QBs where I'm willing, depending on where I'm picking the order, to go after one of those QBs. Then I might work to get a potential stack, a potential load up at another position where a guy can explode for 15 to 20 points in a given week at wide receiver, running back. And then I'm going to target some guys that I like at the bottom a little bit. I'm going to wait until a few guys are gone there, like that kind of that Geno Smith tier I was talking about a little bit. So then I would say, look, you got Jordan Love, you got Kenny Pickett, and Sam Howell. I really am targeting one of those guys in a 2 QB league as much as possible because I think they're a bit undervalued, all 3 of them. They have good weapons. I think if you want to go even deeper than this, you could look at Ryan Tannehill. I think people are forgetting about it. He exists, and he's going in single QB leagues is like QB 31. So in a super flex, you should be able to get him in a reasonable spot here where you're going to get some decent numbers. So there's some guys in the back end that I'm looking at. So I'm kind of going the high-low. I think maybe I might reintroduce myself in a super flex in the Brock Purdy tier right now where there's no concern about Trey Lance. I think I might skip some of those middle guys, assuming I can get one of those top 7 or 8 quarterbacks, and I feel like I can fill the roster. So I don't think it changes too much, except the quarterback is a higher priority, and I want to jump on that position a little bit higher, both earlier and later.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, guys, we have a couple more things to get done here. And while the jury might be out on Trey Lance's future, the judge is definitely in.
What you are about to witness is real.
Hi,
this court is now in session. You may be seated. Today, we would like to call to the stand Mr. Lamar Jackson, quarterback-ish of the Baltimore Ravens. Mr. Jackson, you are brought before this court today and tried with the crime of corruption. These charges stem from the fact that you have corrupted the minds of fantasy players and analysts across the land to the tune of them drafting you all the way up at quarterback 4 in all formats. Mr. Jackson, the evidence is clear against you that you are no longer this guy.
What?
In fact, you are ranked directly above guys like Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence. While this court does understand that you are a previous league MVP, this court also remembers that happened way back in 2019. We've had a whole ass world pandemic since then. Mr. Jackson, since then you have finished quarterback 10, quarterback 14, quarterback 15, while missing time each season. That's not a recipe for success. Now we're bringing in a new offensive coordinator who wants to do what you do worst, which is throw the ball. I don't think that's a recipe for success. And then I look at the guys directly ahead of you again, Mr. Jackson. Burrow, quarterback 4 and 7 the last 2 years. Herbert, quarterback 2 seasons ago. Justin Fields, quarterback 7 last year. And Trevor Lawrence is quarterback 8. If we're being honest, Mr. Jackson, Deshaun Watson has a more reliable fantasy track record than you do. Lamar, this court finds you guilty. You are hereby immediately sentenced to be dropped at least one ADP round from every fantasy analyst rankings. This court is adjourned. I am the law. I asked for one edit in that thing. It was to edit out the Fanny, and I'm glad Coop, highlighted that section. I think this is the first time I've actually been on when my segment has aired, so I kind of don't know what to do with myself right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, you are out of line, sir. Lamar Jackson moving down. Get out of here. You can get out of my court. Why don't you?
There is no way I'm taking Lamar Jackson over Burrow, Fields, Herbert, or Lawrence. After that, I certainly will consider him, but he's just not there. And to me, I just feel like all 4 of those guys have similar upsides and are probably a little bit safer. I just don't trust the guy.
Well, the good thing is that most of the time Lamar is getting picked around the Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence field. So if you're okay with that, I'm okay with that because I trust him a little bit more than Justin Fields, knowing his track record of being an awesome talent. And
4
I think
years
he's a
ago.
little bit faster. Oh, he's still an awesome talent. He's just had some injury problems. But, I mean, who doesn't when you're a running quarterback?
Last thing I want to say is he was good, 3 or 4 years ago, just like his wide receiver.
No. He wasn't good 3 or 4 years ago. He was awesome 3 or 4 years ago.
I'm not drafting Michael Thomas at the quarterback position.
He was awesome 3 or 4 years ago.
So was Mike Thomas.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, but he's been good since. Mike Thomas hasn't touched the field since. To be fair,
there was that one game.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. We're going to do a little quick rapid fire on this. We're doing tight ends. Is there anybody, and obviously this tier 1 is, it's there, but is there anybody on this tier 1 that you guys are obviously always hitting draft on? Is there a my guy for either one of you guys? Judge, is there a my guy in this group where you're just like, duh, every single time, other than Travis Kelce, because that's Freddie's segment. But
and I get where Freddie. I think the difference in me and Freddie is Freddie will draft, Travis Kelce like at the end of the first. I'll go after Travis Kelce early in the first. I have a lot of shares of him. I love T.J. Hawkinson. I really feel like Darren Waller should be in this tier as well. He's my 4th in that tier.
How do you feel about that, Vinny? Do you think Darren Waller should be in that tier 1?
I think, in a way, I think he starts the next tier. I'll just be honest, because of the durability, right? I have a little bit of concern there that staying on the field, he's a little bit older right now. So I think that's my little pause with Darren Waller. That's the only pause I have, but I think it's legitimate. I mean, just staying on the field is important. So I look at TJ Hawkinson. He's the guy I'm circling. Like, I'm going to go after Travis Kelce quite a bit. If I'm in the range to do it and I'm not in a position to take Justin Jefferson or Christian McCaffrey or Jamar Chase, I don't know if, starting at the 4th pick, if I would not look at Travis Kelce. Right now, I think his ADP and ranking is around 5, 6, 7, somewhere there, depending on what league you're looking at, what format you're looking at. So I'm okay doing that with Travis Kelce. And every time I've taken Travis Kelce here in leagues the past 3 years, my team always does great because, again, my first-round pick is just killing it, especially last year. When I did take him in the first round, I actually took him at 11. So when I look at that, okay, Mark Andrews, I like, but they did add some other targets there. So I'm looking at Hawkinson. I really like him quite a bit. So I'm going to try to get Kelsey and Hawkinson in most of my drafts here if I'm going to go tight end early. And Waller I like too. And if there's a little bit of separation and some time and a few picks, and the tight end run doesn't kind of just immediately go to the fourth guy, I'm getting Darren Waller a little bit later as the value behind these three guys.
Yeah, I like how the judges over here like talking up Darren Waller, slobbering all over his knob, but Darren Waller has pretty much the same injury history as far as missing games as Lamar Jackson. So what?
Chip, I thought you were gonna hit me with the video, but to me, what's a tight end? I mean, come on, apples to oranges. Darren Waller isn't being
you just
drafted.
compared him to Michael Thomas, apples to orange. What are we talking about here? Get out of here.
Waller was good in the time since Lamar Jackson has last been good, is all I'm gonna say. I defend the Darren Waller pick. And listen, here's what I love about Darren Waller, right? You look at Travis Kelce, he is the first option in his offense. You look at Darren Waller, he is the only reputable receiver in that room. Like the volume, the targets, all of that should be there. I love him this year. I think he's a great value.
Okay, so we know his my guy out of this one. Vinny, who is your my guy out of tier 2?
Oh man, you're pulling teeth here because I got to pick one of these guys.
Vinny's like, I'm just going to kick the can.
Yeah, I'm going to try to do that. But if I had to pick one, because this is for the purpose of this, I'm going to take Kyle Pitts. I'm not thrilled about it, but Dallas Goedert is not exciting. Pat Freeman is not exciting. I look at Kyle Pitts, at least there's some upside, and I'm not sure that Desmond Ridder is going to make the whole season as the starter, and that would actually help if Taylor Heineke came in there and threw to Kyle Pitts. So that's one thing. I know Arthur Smith has no idea how to use Kyle Pitts. That's a problem. But I look at the talent on the field, and what else do they have really at wide receiver? They have Drake London, but it really is a drop-off after that. So talking about kind of number one targets, these two guys are going to target a lot. I get the Falcons probably want to run as much as they can, be like a 70-30 running team if they could, but that's not reasonable for any team because I don't think they're good enough and they're going to be trailing a little bit. So I like Kyle Pitts of that tier. I'm going to say that and kind of hoping that a quarterback change happens.
That's fair enough. I don't think a lot of people see Desmond Ridder as the future. I personally like him, but he doesn't really have too much zip on that arm, and he has more Trey Lance than he is Lamar Jackson as far as a mobile quarterback. So I get it. For my guy, it's going to be George Kittle, and it's mostly because of the chemistry that he built with Brock Purdy. Now, I understand George Kittle is often injured. He has bad years and good years, but he's somebody who's slipping, and I like the fact that he's falling into those later rounds where people are even choosing Goddard over him. He had 7 touchdowns last year with Brock Purdy. He was hyper-targeted with Brock Purdy. He was getting close to 6 targets a game with Brock Purdy. And Kittle is the type of guy that all you have to do, like these San Francisco receivers are yak bros for a reason. Get it in their hands and they do the work for you. So I am all in on getting George Kittle because his price is always declining and it's redraft, so I don't really have to deal with him on my dynasty squad. Let's go to tier number 3. God, I can't believe there's 3 tiers. It should just be the rest. It should be tier 1, tier 2, and then the rest. But anyways, tier 3, we got David Njoku, Evan Ingram, Chig Okunwo. We got Dalton Schultz, Cole Kmet, Tyler Higbee, Greg Dulcich, and Dalton Kincaid. Judge, tell us who is your my guy out of tier 3.
This is one of my sweet spots in the draft, surprisingly, this nasty little dead zone right here. But I feel like if you get to this point in the draft and you don't have your guy locked in yet, there's going to be some guys in here I'm going to, throw a dart at, and if they don't work out, I will stream the rest of the way. I'm a tight end streamer through and through, but I'm very feast or famine. It's Kelsey or, we're going to play that game all season. But out of these guys, I love the fact that Dalton Kincaid is being lined up as a wide receiver. I think that bodes well for his opportunity. And I also think Chig is going to be a big part of this Tennessee Titans offense. And as a Cowboys fan, I got to shout out my boy Dalton Schultz. Just saying.
Yeah, Dalton Schultz is definitely one of the guys that's on my radar as well. Obviously, Chig is somebody that I've raved about on the Dynasty show. Vinny, this seems like this is the area where you would make your money kicking the can. Who on out of this group right here are you going to plant your flag and say this is my guy?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Dalton Schultz. I just look at this Texans offense. I think there's opportunity, the most vacated targets of any team in the league. I'm not buying into Robert Woods or really what Nico Collins can do on the outside or John Mechie. I think it's going to be a lot of short passes to Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz from CJ Stroud. I mean, that's just where the offense is going to flow. And it's the 49ers offense. So who's going to be more like that Brandon Ayuk / Deebo Samuel / George Kittle roles? I would say these two guys, right? I mean, Dalton Schultz is the tight end. They invested quite a bit of money to get him, and we saw how compressed their passing game could be. So you're going to see a lot of short passes to him. Tank Dell, I don't think you're going to see a lot of deep shots on this team. I think CJ Stroud, we saw a little bit tentative to throw downfield. I think it'll happen eventually, but I think he's going to rely a lot of these guys. I mean, rookie quarterback, we've seen this before, leaning on the tight end, veteran guy that comes in here. So I really like Dalton Schultz of this group. If I'm going to go for one of them, I don't know who would come in second for me. I think it would be maybe Chig, depending on this Traylon Burks injury, if that lingers a little bit. And DeAndre Hopkins is old and could break down at any point here. We know that Ryan Tannehill likes throwing to the tight end, and they like having tight ends in Tennessee. They just haven't had a good one really since maybe the best years of Delaney Walker. Jonas Smith didn't quite work out. So I think Okonkwo has that potential here in that offense. So I think he's the upside guy. I think Dalton Schultz, maybe the high floor guy, where I think Okonkwo is a ceiling guy in this group.
Okay. I get that. I mean, you're just constantly looking for that guy who's going to break in year to year at that top 12. And there's always seems to be one guy on that list that'll make it there. So I definitely agree with you. I think it could be Okonkwo. I think it could be Schultz, because I agree. Schultz is in that San Francisco offense now with Bobby Slovic as their new offensive coordinator. Guys, this is just the rest of the rest. I'm going to give you two lists. So we have Jawan Johnson, Everett, Sam Laporta, Hill, Irv Smith Jr., Hunter Henry. Can I get a bag here? I want to puke. Dawson Knox, Mike Gesicki, Hayden Hurst. And then we finish it off with, Jesus Christ, Trey McBride, Noah Fant still in the NFL, Michael Mayer, Zach Ertz, Jelani Woods, Isaiah not so likely, Cade Otton, Jake Ferguson, and Luke Musgrave. Holy hell, guys. Do me a favor and tell me, out of those like 12, freaking 13, whatever freaking amount of guys, the best of the rest, who do you think could be an underdog to be in that top 12 to 15 range? I'll start with you first, Vinny.
Yeah, I got the two rookies that I'm looking at, and just based on the numbers alone and what's available target-wise, Sam Laporta and Michael Mayer. And let me start with Laporta. I mean, we know what's going on here. We know there's going to be no Jameson Williams in this offense for a while. You start looking around after Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got Marvin Jones back with a second tour of duty with the Lions. You got Josh Reynolds. You have Khalif Raymond. Anyone here that we like that much? Sam Laporta's had a great camp. He is replacing Hawkinson in a role that Jared Goff likes to throw to. So I look at Laporta, got a lot of talent and opportunity. Talent and opportunity lining up here. Look, rookie tight ends, I've heard this a lot this year, especially because the rookie tight end class was pretty good in the draft. Rookie tight ends don't do anything. We're going to wait till year 2, but then again, this class was talented and different, right? So you have to think about that a little bit. And Laporta, I think, could have gone a little bit higher. And I think he's in a great opportunity to produce, at least early in the season here. I don't know what you're going to get from Jameson Williams either, because soft tissue injuries seem to be ready to follow this guy around his career. So I'm going with Laporta there. And then Michael Mayer, I mean, you look at the numbers, our big guy that we mentioned earlier, Darren Waller and Foster Moreau last year, 800 yards receiving combined between those two guys in this Josh McDaniels offense. there. I think this is maybe a bit underrated that he's there and not much competition, right? OJ Howard and Austin Hooper, no. And then you look at wide receiver, they've kind of phased out Hunter Renfrow. I think this is kind of underrated. Like we didn't see it as much maybe, but clearly Josh McDaniels is not treating Hunter Renfrow as Julian Edelman or Wes Welker. That's not happening. That's why they went out and got Jacoby Myers as a big slot. And they're going to use him in the slot for role. They're going to probably use a lot of 12 personnel as well, because we've seen this work for McDaniels. McDaniels is a tight end guy. If he has a tight end, he's going to use him. Jimmy Garoppolo likes to throw to the tight end. So however you line it up here, Michael Mayer has to be a key part. I think the Raiders are also going to stink, and the Lions are going to be a great passing game here, but the Raiders are going to have to pass a lot more than they would like. It's not going to be just running Josh Jacobs into the ground this year. So I do like Laporta and Mayer quite a bit to exceed expectations easily as rookie tight ends. I really like them as like kind of backups there. And one league, I would look at Travis Kelce and Sam Laporta. I'd be happy with that, right? I have some insurance for Kelce if he breaks down a little bit, and a plug and play. And then if somebody needs a tight end, potentially, I'm hoping that I can swap him later for maybe some help in another position.
For sure. I like that. The adage is rookies always kind of take a couple years to develop, but like you said, there's a lot of talent. Mayer dominated at Notre Dame, even though they knew that he was the only guy on the field. And Laporta, he steps into a role that I was not really too happy with, because I think Hawkinson did better in Minnesota. But hopefully with Jameson Williams being down and no real clear-cut wide receiver 2, they make Laporta the guy. Judge, finish us out. Who is your deep sleeper here? Tell me your tight end that you're getting at the very end that you're happy getting.
So there's 2 guys I want to talk about specifically that I'm getting pretty consistently in the last round of every draft as a late round dart throw. But I also want to say, man, you're hyping up those rookies. I think Luke Musgrave from Green Bay also has a chance to really have a big role in his offense. He's probably not somebody I'm targeting a whole lot, but a name that I think people should know at least. But for me, I secretly really love the Irv Smith situation in Cincinnati. It's Joe Burrow, man, and any of those guys can pop. Obviously, he's going to be at best, 4th or 5th in the pecking order. But for a streaming option, there are definitely going to be some games where I'm rolling him out. And the guy I really, really like, my ultimate famine play, and I'm going to be a homer here, but it's Jake Ferguson. He was a rookie last year. They went out, they did draft Schoonmaker. He's a blocking tight end. He started camp late. I don't think he's going to have much of a role, at least at first. They obviously were confident enough in this kid to let Dalton Schultz walk. So, and historically, Dak Prescott has went to his tight ends a lot. So it would not shock me if Jake Ferguson, and I know it's not sexy or anything, but would not shock me if he ends up being a lower end tight end 1 this season.
I like it. Jake Ferguson going with the homer pick. Quickly, just give an answer on this one. Addison or Johnston? Let's help our boy out, Mark Fantasy here. I'm going to go with Addison. I like him a little bit better than Johnston. How about you, Vinny? Who are you going with this one? Dynasty rookie startup or Dynasty rookie draft?
Yeah, I think I go with Addison too. I mean, I think he's drafted for a reason to be a long-term key target here, whoever they had a quarterback. And Johnson needs a few dominoes to fall here to have that production come sooner rather than later.
For sure. Jordan?
3 for 3, baby. It's Jordan Addison all day. Go look at the history of TCU wide receivers drafted in the first round. It's not pretty.
Oh, not pretty indeed. But this episode was great. Vinny, please. Well, first off, Vinny, thank you for coming on. And please plug away. Tell us where all of our fans can find you. And tell us all about your great projects and all your work in the fantasy industry.
Yeah, I'm usually at sportingnews.com, so check it out. All the NFL coverage and the fantasy football coverage that you're looking for. We'll have the week 1 start sets rolling out next week there for you. So already looking ahead to that, ahead of Labor Day.
Nice.
So get your drafts in, but do that. And then you can also find me on the Locked On Network, Locked On Fantasy Football. I host now with Michelle Madzouk. So check it out. It's a great show here. We do it every weekday for you. So bringing you the insight, kind of put together our sporting news and NFL.com insights and give you some fantasy football nuggets of wisdom here every week.
Awesome. Yeah, the Locked On Network, awesome source for all information. I know I watch Locked On 49ers and Locked On Fantasy every single day.
Locked On Mavs, baby. I love them. Love them.
Locked On Mavs. I do Locked On Kings as well. So I'm in that NBA scene as well. Guys, thank you so much for coming in and joining us tonight. Next week, we are doing our Fantasy Redraft Charity League. So make sure to tune in for that. We might have a couple slots left for the fans. So tune in next week as we get that all ready to go for you guys. And we're getting ready for the season. So go ahead, subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and hit the like button. It all helps. And we appreciate you guys. Thank you. And we are out.